I think that a lot of the changes for us have been around the delivery of our mission. Our mission is to make sure that everyone has a decent place to live and that we can provide that strength, stability, and self-reliance that affordable home ownership provides. But we have a means of doing that that's been interrupted.
I can't imagine being in a pandemic with housemates coming and going. I think a lot about the people who don't have their own safe home, and it's very sad to me. We're very fortunate. I never thought I'd be able to own a home, so that in itself was like a miracle. I feel very fortunate every single day to have a safe home.
The young people I know, I always advise them to look into it because it's really worth it. Building your own house, it's a life-changing thing. It's something that will go with you throughout your life.
We followed the local kind of directives from the Board of Health. There was a brief kind of pause on the job sites, and we had one house that we were close to finishing. So we paused with the volunteers and hired a contractor to do some of the trim outs on a house, which we would normally do with volunteers. And then we, based off of local regulations, adapted our own safety policies so we can kind of keep our circles small, and they've been working great. I think everyone has been really wanting to come out and volunteer, which is really helpful and wonderful, so we can keep these projects moving along. So we've had close communication with our board, with the staff, with our volunteers, and adjusting as we go as we needed. But I think a lot of people are really anxious to come back to work, and we appreciate all their hard work.
It's been several months since we were able to make progress on this house, so we're delighted to be back and getting to work on it again. Today is a big day. We're going to raise the first wall, and that's really the official start of the process.
Good.
We have a limited number of crew to minimize the chance of contagious situations. But yeah, we're happy to be here.
It's hard, and I think it's good that we're doing as much as we're doing, that we can keep some people busy anyway. That's really good.
This house hasn't been completed yet, and the economics of it are going to be a little different because of COVID shutdown had a major disruption on the progress that we could make in building this house. So we were building up through the March timeframe, then we basically had to shut down completely and did not start up again until the second week of June. The original intent, I believe, was to have this house completed by the end of May. It will be finished end of July and into August, which is hard. And so we've prioritized the completion of this house. The family's been waiting, and we want to get that done and get them moved in as soon as we can.
Being an election season, I'm hearing a lot more from politicians, and between the pandemic, the economic downturn we're in, and all of the discussions around racism, certainly housing has risen a lot more to the top as an issue and as a real one that affects people.
I've been watching the real estate market, and there is a huge influx of people moving out of cities. It's been fascinating to watch what's happening locally with the real estate market. And I wonder when the dust settles, what the change in our community is going to be. Are there going to be a lot more people who are excited to engage in this mission because they have now fled from a city to the country to have a safer place to live? Is it going to change the resources we have to draw on in terms of fundraising or volunteer engagement? I feel like there's a little bit of a wave of new influx, and how that's going to shake out in our community in the long term is going to be interesting.
So our normal way is by really pulling together a broad swath of the community. College students, the retired people, the unemployed, the wealthy, the low income. So we have been working really hard to bring people together. And that's been the hardest thing for me in the pandemic. That community building aspect of the work we do has been where we've had to pivot more, looking at how we can bring people together online, how we can use small groups of dedicated volunteers. To me, that's the biggest change, that it's deepened my commitment to wanting to make sure people have a safe home to live in and the security of that safe place, even when there's chaos in the world.
This has been a life-changing event. I mean, there are always going to be challenges, but having a safe, affordable home and mortgage is a total game changer. I wish this for everybody.
The houses that we are framing currently, I think that we've framed them pretty close to a normal schedule. We've allowed us to have a little bit more volunteers if the task requires it, because we want to make sure that everyone is still being safe with construction policies as well as pandemic policies. So extension a little bit, but shockingly not that much, which is really great. We were still able to have things like dedications and wall raisings, and they were hybrid Zoom models, but we were still able to involve the homeowners. And for one of the houses, we made sure that the homeowner from his car got to see the first wall going up on his house, just to make sure we could keep the distance, but he saw it.
We're very happy to be building in Shutesbury. This is the first Habitat home that's going to be built in Shutesbury. And we've started clearing the land in April, and we've just started building now. With the lifting of some of the COVID restrictions, we're able to do wall raising today. We have a goal of completing the house by next May or June, and having it wrapped up, enclosed before the winter, so we can work inside over the winter. The homeowner, Chuck, is here today, so this is a good day for him. All right, good. Thank you.
Just the community around our field volunteers, like they scheduled their own weekly Zoom meeting so that they can still stay in touch. They were sharing pictures back and forth about projects they were working on in their homes. It was really sweet to see how that community stayed alive during it.
The continuity that the interns offered, it was so nice to have Monica on board during this time. She sort of was a bridge between the staff and regular volunteers and others. It's really nice to have those interns who can help us in that way.
It's certainly great to be back on site. We've been off for several months now. Obviously there are a lot of things that we have to follow now that we didn't before. These masks are not the most pleasant thing to work with, especially in the summer. But you do what you got to do. We're going to get the job done, whatever it takes.
I think there have been a lot more conversations about collaborative efforts than I've seen in a long time, and networking across nonprofit organizations. Of course, the conversation about online events is big, and what can we do online. Our whole spring campaign was online. For the first time that I know of, we did not send anything through the mail this time. That's a question for us going forward, certainly, how much we will do both or just one. We are asking great questions that we probably could have asked over the years and just never were forced to. It's really perfect timing to look at these pandemic months as time of opportunity when we can, finish doing our to-do list and worrying, because there certainly are a lot of things to worry about. There's certainly also a lot of opportunities, sort of ways we've shifted to accommodate new audiences by going online and things like that.
There's just a lot of uncertainty because there's uncertainty in all of our lives. So when we look at our fundraising prospects for the year ahead, we don't know what opportunities will exist. When we send out a fall solicitation letter, whether people will respond, or when we talk about the long-term impact that housing has for people, or whether they're more focused on short-term pandemic crisis intervention, it's a really difficult balance because housing has become a lot more than it was in the past for a lot of people. When you have to spend all of your time at home, it becomes maybe your office, your sanctuary, your school. It takes on all these new dimensions that are really critical. So the idea of having a stable and healthy place to live, I think, is even more important now in the pandemic.
The future of, smaller homes is very much in flux right now, and we'll have to see if that's something that people want, because maybe they would prefer to have a smaller home or an accessory dwelling unit, something else that's separate rather than being in an apartment in a city or in a condo situation. Like maybe having that own space is going to be really important going forward, and people will want to have that, and like the small homes will be good. Or are people really going to be pushing for larger as people realize that no, actually I want all of the square footage I can get when I'm in my house all the time?
As someone whose kitchen table is also play space, which is also my office, I'm either at the kitchen table or right now I'm in the mud room entryway at my house. So I think that this is a question that a lot of people are juggling with. There's also privacy and security in having your own four walls that maybe a just big enough house would be able to provide.
I don't know. I've moved out of an apartment and into a small home, and I can say it is 10,000 times better than living in an apartment. But I also relate to having to make any space into an office.
Yeah, the fact
I turned off my virtual background.
There's the mudroom.
Well, I mean, I'm in my car right now, so it's not even a virtual office.
I'm in space.
Yeah.
I'm actually in a tiny home.
It's fascinating where we all are right now. You know, none of us has a quote office, not one of us.
We're all mostly working remotely, and I think that's really only possible because everyone on staff is, oh, hey, here's the baby.
Here he is.
He wanted to join the staff meeting. I don't know what I was saying. Something about how great you guys are.
I was video chatting one of my bosses for my other job yesterday while she was feeding her chickens. So
it is interesting, though, to think about that, just in terms of housing, because this may be kind of a permanent future in terms of people expecting to at least work from home part of the time. So homes may just organically change.